Thanks for the intro, and thanks to everyone joining today. Just a reminder, if you do have any questions, please drop them into the chat window and we'll come back to them at the end. As business leaders, we're always striving to improve, and I'm one of those people who like to read business biographies, to learn from people who've had success. And one business leader that I do really admire is Jack Welch. Jack Welch led General Electric from 1981 to 2001. He was their youngest ever CEO at age 45, and he grew the company over 2,000% during his leadership. He's well known for saying, "Without doubt, there are lots of ways to measure the pulse of a business, but if you have employee engagement, customer satisfaction, and cash flow right, you can be sure your company is healthy and on the way to winning." Now, he's remembered for many significant changes that he made at GE, and at the time, these changes were really cutting edge. Now they've become commonplace and standard. He loved to change and to have informality in his business. He encouraged people to challenge their managers, and being an engineer, he was passionate about the importance of accurate data. Just like today, as business leaders, we're focused on customer experience, employee experience, and we do know that if we can get those right, we'll see a positive effect on our revenue. And there's been heaps written about customer experience and employee experience. It's one of those sort of very fluffy areas. Knowing exactly what is required to move the dial is a lot less clear. What actions that you as a business leader can take to impact customer experience and employee experience is less clear. So earlier this year, the Harvard Business Review Analytics Services released a research report. What they did was they surveyed 464 business leaders across APAC, North America and EMEA. And what they showed was that by empowering their frontline workforce with the ability to make decisions, resulted in a 69% increase in customer satisfaction and employee engagement, and a 72% increase in productivity. They split the survey respondents into leaders, so leaders in empowering their frontline, and laggards, so people who didn't empower their frontline workforce. And when they looked at the leaders, 16% of that group experienced revenue growth of more than 30%. And another third had revenue growth in the 10 to 30% range. It's an amazing outcome, but when you think about it, our frontline workers are our retail workers, our nurses, our flight attendants, our maintenance workers, our store managers, our service technician, and our field salespeople. They are that first point of contact between our organisation and our customers. They're the face of our business, and internally they're our champions of the customer. They know our businesses better than anyone else. They know our customers' pain better than anyone else. And they know our inner workings better than anyone else. The details of exactly how things are done inside our organisation. So when we can empower our front line with data and the ability to make decisions, we're removing so many barriers to creating great customer experience. I think it's easy to understand why it's important. But how do we get to the point of empowering our front line? What are the things that we have to do? So in the study, they found 3 key areas consistently across leading companies about how they'd empowered their workforce. The starting point has to be leading the way, starting from the very top of the organisation. Executive buy-in is critical to success. The attitudes of executives were starkly different across the leader and the laggard groups, with just under half of the laggard companies refusing to allow their frontline to make decisions. That compares to just 4% of leading companies. So if their executive were not on board opening up data access and allowing the frontline to make decisions, then it's going to be really a struggle, if not impossible, to have a successful outcome. The executive also has to believe in data-driven decision-making. They have to trust in the data. They need to move away from gut feel style of management to a fact-driven management. And they have to be invested in data fluency, not just for their teams, but also for themselves. There's some really good tools out there that are available to help assess where your company is in terms of data maturity. And I've got one that I use and I'm happy to share with anyone who's interested after the presentation. So if we have the company leadership on board, then we're on the way to driving that cultural change across the business. The starting point is to invest in training. So this is typically focused around the tools, which is, which buttons to press and so on. But that's just the starting point. People need to develop data fluency. And by that I mean a level of comfort and confidence when working with the data. And they have to learn what the data means and how to apply it to make decisions. So this is far from a tick and flick exercise of just sitting inside a classroom for an hour or a day. It does take time and it takes support ongoing on the job. A really effective change management approach is to develop data champions or data influencers. And these are people who are across your business who can help the frontline workers to answer their own data questions, and they learn to apply data to their decision making. So our data influencers, they often come from our previously centralized analytics teams, but by building that data fluency across the front line, what we're doing is we're effectively scaling out. We're enabling self-service, and that frees up our core analytics teams. A company that's done this really well is Verizon, and they use that data champion approach to build data fluency across their front line. Now, before this change, their analyst team were the only group providing data insights, and they were only able to support around 300 questions per month. Now, with their employees able to directly access the data they need, they're answering more than 2,000 questions a month. That's a 566% increase in questions answered across the business. So if you think about how many analysts you would have had to put on, you can see that this is a much more effective way of enabling your workforce. So data modernization. So the final piece of that puzzle is data modernization. Now, this is often just thought of as moving from on-prem data stores to cloud-based data warehouses like Snowflake, Redshift, and so on. But that's just one part of a modernization program. So yes, with growing volumes of data, cloud-based warehouses are becoming very important. They offer the scaling that we need to be able to provide access to large volumes of data widely, so many users across our organization. But there also needs to be an investment in data governance and security. So right at the start of the process, I touched on the need for the executive to have trust in the data. So is the data clean? Is it accurate and reliable? Is it complete? And that's something that Dan's spoken extensively about, but it's critical to success. As we provide more of our organisation access to our data, we need to have robust security to ensure that each person only has access to the data that they are allowed and also need to see. The last part of data modernisation is to make the information accessible to our users. So there's a very literal meaning, which is, able to be used on our mobiles and tablet devices, but it also encapsulates providing the data in a way that's understandable to the end user. So our frontline employees, they don't and they shouldn't need to know or understand how data is structured. They shouldn't need to understand dimensions and facts to simply find out what the top selling products were for last year. So data modernization is also about providing them a way to ask a question and to answer it that is easy for them to understand. So Suncorp is an Australian business, and they've already been along this journey. They've rolled out a program to empower their claim operations team. So prior to this change, their claim operations team were reliant on a centralised analytics team to provide reports and answer every question that they had about their data. It was causing huge frustration on both sides. Delays on the operations side and their analyst team just doing sort of endless monkey work of generating reports. So about 2 years ago, they deployed a new platform that allowed their claim team to use natural language to ask questions of the data. And in a very short period of time, with that greater access and knowing the business intricately, their claim operations team identified $30 million worth of new opportunities, which is pretty impressive. Vodafone Business has taken it another step further. So initially, they rolled out a platform to help their internal teams. That allowed them to quickly identify customers that had anomalies. So, for example, mobile phone users that had really high call charges. And so with that information, their team was able to proactively contact customers and help them manage their account and reduce charges. So that's resulted in a significant drop in customer churn. So after that success of empowering their frontline, they took it one step further to actually roll out access to their 10,000 enterprise customers and their 1.1 million small medium business customers. So again, they're using natural language search to understand their own billing and call information. So there's been a huge improvement in their customer experience, which has significantly dropped call volumes to their customer support, and also it's had an amazing 45% increase in their net promoter score. So some great success stories, but what's the other side? So where can things go wrong? Where can they become derailed? The top 5 areas from the original survey were lack of support from middle management. So a really key part of change management is that, yes, it needs to be driven from the top, but we also need to bring everyone along from all levels of the organisation on the journey. We need to train everyone, and we need to support middle management to provide that environment to frontline workers so they can feel confident to make the decisions, and that when they do make a mistake, that it's going to be okay. We touched right back at the start the importance of top leadership driving and believing in the change, and that really flows through to those next 2 barriers: funding the tools that are needed, investing in training for our frontline workforce, and then the last one is the lack of effective change management, which is typically seen across all projects. So where to from here? The survey showed that over half of the 464 respondents were expecting to be moving to a self-service analytics in the next 2 years. And that report was released earlier in the year, before COVID. And given the significant impact of COVID, how has that changed things? So another survey by Dresden Advisory that was run each month. So looking in February, sort of early on, we had 9% of respondents saying that they found that self-service would be critical to their business, versus now in April, so post-COVID, that has jumped up 34%. So as we've had our distributed workforces and no longer able to have in offices working, that has now increased significantly. So it looks now that enabling self-service is going to be a major focus for quite a number of companies over the next couple of years. Thanks for your time. I mentioned during my presentation that I do have a data-driven maturity assessment, so if anyone would like that, just drop me a message either in the chat now or via email, and I'll send you out a copy. And I think we have time for a couple of questions. If anyone does have them, just drop them into the chat.